All right, so we're talking scrapping 101. So first thing we're going to cover is what tools do you need to identify different types of metal. Then we'll talk about what tools you need to start taking things apart. And then we'll talk about how to separate different types of metal utilizing these two sets of tools. So here are your basic tools. You need a file, a magnet, and a hammer. With those three tools, you can separate and sort scrap based on what it is. So first thing I'm going to do is check with a magnet, what are we looking at today? So I'm touching with a magnet. If it's not sticking, it means it's something non-ferrous, right? Ferrous means it has iron properties, right? Then for us, we'll put it in as sheet iron. Can be called iron, can be called tin down south. It means a lot of different things, but it's probably going to be your sheet iron or your general ferrous metal, right? So you go through all this non-ferrous, but here we come to handles, which are ferrous. We're going to talk about those here in a second. So once we identify the major parts, then we go through and we figure out how do we differentiate a piece like this versus this versus this, because this is going to sort down to three different types of metal and grade. So the second set of tools we're going to use is a file. Now we've identified it does not stick to a magnet. If it does stick to a magnet, it's going to go in with our sheet iron and it's going to go out. So it doesn't stick to a magnet, which means it's non-ferrous. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a file to this, and I want to see a couple things. I want to see what color it is underneath, first and foremost. I want to see how soft the metal is. Those are the first two things I'm looking for when I'm looking at a file. So I come in here, I can tell, very soft, very easy to grind, and it's still silver in color as I do it. Also, it's not really chipping or flaking, so I know now it's going to be either aluminum, die cast, or stainless, more than likely one of those three metals. So next thing I want to check is how tough is it? So I'm going to take the hammer, hit it. If it dents the whole thing, it's nice and soft, it's aluminum. If I crack it, it could be die cast or cast aluminum, something cast. And if I just kind of nick it and it dries on, it means it's stainless, right? Not too thick, right? This piece here, after I hit it, nice and soft throughout. To identify that from the side, a little bit better. So now you get a nice soft throughout the entire metal. It does have a little bit of a gouge because it's a little thicker grade, but it's soft throughout, it dents the whole thing. Now it's telling me that this is aluminum. So the next thing I want to look for is, if I know it's aluminum, we sort aluminum by 9 different grades. So based on your scrap here, you're going to sort it the way they want to. So when looking at it, it's got just a plastic handle on it. So what I want to do is take the handle off. I can use either a screwdriver, just a hand screwdriver. I always keep hand screwdrivers around, just the ones where you can change the bits out on them, because I want to take them apart with ease. I don't want 37 screwdrivers, I just want a few. I like the ones that ratchet like that, because then I don't have to sit there and ding around with it too much. Okay, so now I take the plastic handle off. Plastic handle goes here because it's plastic. The screw here, it sticks to the magnet. That means it's sheet iron, so it goes in here. Now the last thing, I'm going to check this to see if it's magnetic. It is not. Okay, so that means this whole thing is aluminum. So I can put this in as aluminum sheet. It's not super thick, so depending on your scrapyard, it's either sheet aluminum or aluminum extruded. You'll check with them. They'll tell you based on basically the thickness what it goes down as. For our scrapyards, this was considered aluminum sheet. So I put it in there. All right, next item here. It's similar, right? We already know it's non-magnetic, nice and soft. Come here with a hammer, right? We get that nice dent. So again, we know it's aluminum. It's a soft metal. It dents throughout. But I have these handles on here. So these handles on here are steel. They're riveted or pop riveted. I can sit here and take this apart and waste my time, but I'm not going to. So I put this as unprepped number 2, aluminum extruded. So that's how our scrapyard looks at it. So that's in this Gaylord here. So basically means that the weight is about 90%, 85, I should say 85 to 90% aluminum, and then the rest is something else. When you have plastic, typically I can get away with aluminum sheet, but when I have steel, I got to put them in as unprepped number 2. I'm not going to take the time to bend these out, cut these out, or anything else. So that goes in as aluminum extruded unprepped. Next thing here, teapot. So I'm going to use that same test I used before. Checked it with the magnet. Now I'm going to look at the file. Okay, as I hit it with the file, it started dancing a little bit. Not only have a gouge here, but I have gouges throughout. The aluminum, I had one gouge, gouges throughout. Now I'm going to hit with a hammer. Here, it actually dents it pretty good, and it spiders it. Let me try it on the side here. It's a little thin there. Yeah, this actually dented it here pretty good too. But you have one dent mark here, and it's kind of gouged it. This here, because of how much it dances around, it's silver and shiny. Shiny is a little bit subjective, but it's still silver underneath. I know this is now stainless. Now I look at it, I have plastic here. How do I get rid of that? Again, this is a quick fix here. hit with the hammer, pop off these screws. Good to have a channel locks or something else nearby, because once you hit it, it doesn't always want to come off. And then you can pop these out, pop them out or unscrew them, depending on how particular your scrapyard is. Our scrapyards aren't super particular about stuff like that because overall the weight is stainless. So now I have something that's shiny. It's a little bit harder, right? You can hear it sounds different a little. So that goes into stainless steel. All right, next I'm gonna look at is the other two metals you're gonna come across a lot. Something like this. This is a pipe. It's got a little bit of weight to it. Check it. Does not stick to the magnet. Next thing I'll do is hit it with a file. And you can see it's copper. I don't have to do anything else. It's copper in color. So this copper here, because it's painted, will actually go down as number 2 copper for us. So we sort copper by 3 different grades: bare bright, copper number 1, which means basically no imperfections, and copper number 2, which has solder or paint on it. So they'll go down as copper number 2. Last thing you're going to encounter quite a bit here is lamps. Lamps, lampshade, we take those apart typically. So with this, I hit it with a magnet, nothing. Next thing I do, I want to see what color it is underneath. Underneath, it's brass in color. Okay, so now I know this is brass. I'm not going to do a third test because brass is the only one that's going to show brass in color. However, I can come over here with a similar base that looks like a similar item, right? First test, non-magnetic. Second test, hit it with the file, and you can see here, it is silver in color. So what this tells me, I can also look on the inside. This is a cast product, so this is actually die cast. If I hit this with a hammer, it'll eventually crack. So there we can see it'll crack. If I would have hit that, actually hand me that again. I'll just hit it and show you for sure. If I hit this, it's not going to crack. It'll just continue to bend. Nope. Or in this case, I cut it, did not crack it, just actually cut it because it was too thin. So a little bit of difference between a cut and a crack. And now that's brass. So those are the basic metals you're going to come across. Aluminum is probably most common, stainless, brass, copper, and then die cast. In that order, that's how common these types of metals are. If you're going to get into the basics, that's where you start.